Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the what if. As the sun rose the next morning, Yoruichi was awakened by the rays that made it through the windows in Ichigo's room. The warmth was pleasant, easing the chill of the air-conditioned room. She smiled as she rolled over, looking at her roommate on the floor. Last night was a big, but welcome change from Ichigo's normal sleeping habits. Instead of tears and thrashing, small happy sighs and little smiles made up the majority of his expressions. She had giggled at some of his sleep talking. While most of it was her name, the "come back s" and other begging had changed to "stay." The funniest, though, was when he had gotten a strange expression and brokenly muttered, "Pants." Yoruichi. Damn, she had had to fight to not laugh out loud at this. As she watched him now, he looked so peaceful. His ever-present scowl relaxed into a slight, sleepy smile. Why not have a little morning entertainment, she thought. She slid out from under the covers, dropping to the floor by Ichigo's side. As she cuddled next to him, her eyes flew open in shock as his muscular arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. Very close. His smell was incredible. He smelled of body wash and she couldn't put her finger on it. She looked up to see that he was still asleep. As she tried to shift, his arms tightened and she felt his face press into the crook of her neck as he inhaled deeply, making her shudder. "Cammy, it's been a while since I've been touched like this." He had better be careful, she thought, her body warming up at Ichigo's embrace. Yoruichi, he mumbled. She tried one last time to adjust herself, still shocked at how her joke had backfired. Again, he tightened his arms mumbling, "She's mine." What the hell, does he really want me? Yoruichi froze, a slight blush on her cheeks. Yes, even she was made to blush. Her heart was starting to pound, and she knew that if she didn't wake him up soon, the way her body was heating up he would get a very forceful awakening. Easy girl, he would definitely have a heart attack with what you have in mind. As she started to shake his shoulder, his eyes snapped open, his wide brown ones locking with her hungry golden ones. Yoruichi watched in horror as Ichigo's hollow transformation completed. She couldn't form a coherent thought as she saw the imposing figure turn towards her. She was about to scream as she saw a red ball of energy form in its right hand, but was stunned as it screamed over her. She turned to see a hollow that had just appeared dissolving. What the hell? Suddenly, more hollows began to appear, surrounding the area. The hollow Ichigo roared, shaking the ground as he began to flash back and forth, ripping, tearing and blowing holes through the surrounding hollows with crimson sarrows. Yoruichi. She heard behind her. She spun to see a familiar crowd joining the fray. "Are you?" Chad and Kazuki waded into the sea of hollows, each punching, slashing and shooting their way towards Yoruichi while Orihime and Isshin ran to Ichigo's fallen body. "Ichigo!" Isshin bellowed, uncharacteristic panic emanating from him. The sight of his son's broken and bloodied corpse in tandem with the hollow monstrosity he had become briefly filled him with fear. "Kurosaki-kun!" Inoue cried as she knelt by his corpse. Instantly, her hairpins glowed and Ichigo's body became covered by a bright orange glowing shell. As she focused on healing him, Isshin defended her from the advancing hollows. As the number of hollows began to decrease, everyone became painfully aware of Ichigo's overwhelming reiatsu. The killing intent within it was so heavy that even Kazuki and Isshin were sweating. Suddenly, his reiatsu skyrocketed even further, forcing humans, Shinigami and hollows alike onto their knees. His hollow form was flashing all over the battlefield, destroying the attacking hollows. As his claws went through the mask of the last one, the sound of shattering glass filled the air as the reiatsu level drastically dropped. Everyone watched as Ichigo's Shinigami form emerged from the crumbling hollow shell. He was desperately searching, head swiveling until he saw her. A tired, relieved smile crossed his face as he softly said, "Yoruichi." Everyone was stunned as they watched him look from her to his broken body, to his hand which was holding his massive zanpakuto. He looked up again, having eyes only for Yoruichi. "I'm back," he muttered as he collapsed to the ground. As he dropped, everyone seemed to snap back to their senses. Isshin and Kazuki rushed over to Ichigo, where Yoruichi had already appeared and caught his Shinigami body before he hit the ground. Yoruichi." You certainly have an effect on young Kurosaki-san, Don't panic, his Reiatsu is mostly stable. Weak, but stable. Isshin, we need to get him into Soul Society. Constant spiritual pressure will do him good, plus we wouldn't have to worry about the hollows returning. I'm sure Hana would be able to take care of him, Kazuki said. I'll take him, Yoruichi said quickly. She still hadn't let Ichigo's unconscious body go. Isshin, someone has to take care of the body. At this, everyone looked over to Orihime's orange shell that encased his physical body. The hole was closing up, but it was still in bad shape. He is healing, but it will be a while before he's fully done, Orihime offered, choking back tears. Isshin nodded, relieved at the turn of events. I can keep a watch over his body at the clinic. Yoruichi, if you're taking him, you need to go now. Kazuki, is the Senkaiman ready? Kazuki nodded. He then looked over to Yoruichi and nodded, both of them disappearing with Ichigo's unconscious Shinigami body. Isshin let out a long breath of air. That kid is incapable of having a normal life, he muttered. As he turned to the trio of Ryu, Chad, and Inoue, he smiled. Thanks guys. That was a fun little workout, nay. All three sweat dropped. You could say that, Kurosaki-san. If I may ask, what was Yoruichi doing with Ichigo? Ryu asked with narrowed eyes. He clearly didn't have his powers before today, why was she here? Surely she wasn't seeing him in a Gigai. As he said this, he looked a few yards away to see Yoruichi's crumpled Gigai laying. Why now? They ignore him for almost 2 years and when they come to see him, he gets his powers back. This feels weird. Oh, she just came by for a visit. Hasn't had many chances to, so she was just catching up with Ichigo. The ladies can never be too far from Kurosaki men, Isshin exclaimed, earning another sweat drop from the group. As for what just happened, well, I'll be interested to hear that story myself once he gets back. How is his body, Inoue? Chad asked in his usual low baritone. It should recover fully. If his powers hadn't come back, we would have been too late, she said as she sniffled. Poor Kurosaki-kun, I wish I could have been there to protect him. Why was Yoruichi here? Why would she visit Kurosaki-kun? They couldn't take their eyes off of each other, she thought sadly. Orihime, how soon can we move his body? Isshin asked after several minutes, ready to get Ichigo's body back to the clinic. The hollows are gone now, but I'd like to still get out of the area. We can take Yoruichi's Gigai with us as well. It should be okay now. I healed him completely, but I'd still be extra careful. Okay guys, I think we should be okay for now. Orihime, if you could come by later just to check in and make sure everything is still great, I'd appreciate it. Chad, I'm sure Ichigo will let you know when he gets back, Isshin said. He had better, Ryu thought, while Chad simply grunted in acknowledgement. At Urahara's shop, Yoruichi was preparing to take Ichigo through the Senkaiman to Soul Society. Do you think he will be okay, Kazuki? She asked, a sense of desperation in her voice. He paused, slightly surprised by her tone. Not a good time for teasing, or half-truths. He sighed, I don't know. The fact that he is in his Shinigami form is a good sign, but we need to get him to Hana to completely stabilize his Reiatsu. Don't worry, our Kurosaki-san is a warrior. He's come out of many tough scrapes before. Believe in him, Yoruichi. From what I saw out there, your belief in him weighs far more heavily than anything else. She looked up at her longtime friend, seeing no mockery or derision in his eyes. Thanks Kazuki, I guess today just caught me off guard. I'm going now, I'll let you know as soon as I have news, she said as she leapt into the Senkaiman. Single quote. Ah, my dear feline friend, if that caught you off guard, just wait until he actually realizes what you mean to him, he chuckled inwardly. Now that Ichigo's powers were back, he could easily see that these two were on a collision course that neither would see until it came to an abrupt, and possibly violent if he knew his friend had. As Yoruichi stepped into the familiar surroundings of the Seraiti, she shun-PO'd quickly to the Squad 4 barracks, wanting to draw as little attention as possible. She thankfully, and surprisingly, made it into the medical ward without being spotted. However, as she moved down the hallway, a sweet, familiar voice chimed behind her, Yoruichi Shihoin, what brings you to my medical ward? As she turned, she was met by a pleasantly smiling Captain Unohana, whose eyes widened at the body in her visitor's arms. My, he seems to always be able to find a way into my care, she said, shaking her head with a slight smile. If you'll please come this way, we can put him in a private room. I assume, due to the nature of your arrival, that no one is aware of his powers or presence. Thank you, Retsu. No, this just happened and I wanted to keep it as low profile as possible until we know what we are dealing with. I can fill you in on the details that I have once we find him a room. At this, Captain Unohana led Yoruichi to a small room located in the back of the Squad 4 Medical Center. As Yoruichi laid him down on the small bed, she sank into a chair next to him, never taking her eyes off of him. As the captain began to perform her healing Kido, Yoruichi told her about everything that had happened since her arrival to the world of the living. While not all of it was relevant, Yoruichi had always been able to open up to Retsu, even during her days as captain of Squad 2. He intercepted a hollow attack without actually being able to see it, she asked, impressed but shocked. How? I have no idea. One moment I am bracing for impact, the next I hear. Yoruichi shuddered at the horrible memory. I turned and see him, staring at me with a huge talon through his chest, with him telling me to run, and to not die. Tears once again escaped the violet-haired goddess' eyes. I see, thankfully his powers were able to manifest. I am curious as to what happened in his inner world if his hollow form was first in control, Captain Unohana said. Curious indeed. Kurosaki-san throwing his mortal body intercepting an attack meant for her while being unable to sense it, and my dear Yoruichi glued to his side, all while his powers if my reading is correct will make a full recovery. You obviously hold a very special place in young Kurosaki-san's heart. Many would be jealous of that kind of determination over your safety, she added with a kind smile. Yoruichi blushed lightly. I doubt it. Ichigo has always been one to throw his life on the line for those in danger. Still, I hope he can forgive me, she added quietly. If I hadn't been weak and come back in my Gigai, he never would have been attacked. I left before I had even found out if his physical body survived. The girl from his invasion, to save Rukia was healing it as I left. Yoruichi's head was hung low as she finished. Sure, she was a proud, strong, independent woman who needed no one and nothing, but the guilt she felt for endangering Ichigo's life was overwhelming. The worst part was, she knew he wouldn't hold it against her. He would say something stupid like, I finally got my chance to protect again. She huffed internally, what an idiot, why can't he consider self-preservation sometimes? She couldn't help but smirk, because then he wouldn't be Ichigo. Jackass. Unohana watched her friend sulk in guilt for a moment. There is definitely something there. Knowing these two, they won't realize for a while. This should be entertaining. While she knew that Yoruichi wasn't dense, Kurosaki-san wasn't particularly known for his powers of observation or insight into the mind of the fairer sex. She guessed that reality would most likely meet him via Yoruichi's foot to his head. Young love is most entertaining. I believe that he will make a full recovery, including the powers he had at the time Aizen fell. Granted, he will need to wait to return to his physical body until he can gain control over that massive amount of Reiatsu. Maybe as he recovers you could teach him some Kido. It would certainly help with his Reiatsu control. I will. How long do you think it will be before he wakes? Yoruichi asked. She couldn't feel confident in his recovery until she saw him awake. It could take a few days. From what I know of his hollow transformations, they take quite a bit out of him. Still, as soon as he is mobile I recommend Reiatsu control training as well as speaking with his Zanpakuto. Rest is first, though. While he recovers, a meeting with the Saotaicho would most likely be in order. I am certain he would be able to hear your story and be discreet. Don't worry, I can have something more comfortable brought it for your rest, or maybe for the sake of discretion a regularly refilled saucer of milk for Kurosaki-san's feline guardian. As the raven-haired captain smiled and left, Yoruichi smiled widely at her comment, yet quickly frowned as she knew Unohana was right. The old man would want to know. She sighed, glancing at Ichigo once more, then left for the Squad 1 barracks eager to be done with it and to come back to Ichigo. Yoruichi sighed as she stood outside the office of the Saotaicho. Genryusai Shigekuni Yamamoto was often a reasonable man, when given the chance. Try to hide something from him or work against him, and you earn yourself one hell of an adversary. Approach him with reason, argue for what is right and just, and you have his attention and consideration. She knocked on the door, having to wait only a moment before hearing a gruff voice say, "Enter." As she approached his desk, she sensed his reiatsu to be in a calm state, which she took to be a positive sign. "Ah, Lady Yoruichi Shihoin, how may I help you?" He had always respected this woman, especially after Aizen's betrayal came to light. She has more nerve than most of the captains combined, he chuckled inwardly. "Saotaicho Yamamoto, I have just returned from the world of the living where something happened." She watched as one of his narrow eyes slightly opened. "You see," and she began her story, figuring it best to provide full disclosure in this scenario, as it would bode best for Ichigo. As she finished, she saw both of his eyes open slightly. "This is interesting." Yamamoto had stopped being surprised hundreds of years ago, and Ichigo Kurosaki seemed to be a boy who persisted in making the impossible possible. "I see. What is it that you're asking of me?" He wanted to see what direction this would go. There were clearly feelings involved on both sides, however, their depth or severity remained to be seen. Kids can be quite blind sometimes, he thought. Plus, he could not deny being pleased that one of Seoul society's greatest allies was back. "Only for discretion. This is obviously a unique situation, and his safety is paramount," she replied formally. "Quite blind indeed," he chuckled inwardly again. "Very well. You are his caretaker, though. Once he has recovered and has communicated with his Zanpakuto, bring him before me. Then, we can discuss his future. Until then, this can remain between ourselves and Unohana Taiko. However, given the history of his reiatsu, I don't see this staying a secret for too long." "Arigato, Saotaicho," she replied as she left the office. "That went better than expected. Now I just have to keep him out of the public eye." The next few days were tough for Yoruichi, as she had to avoid everyone in Seoul society. Ichigo's condition had leveled out, so now his awakening was simply a waiting game. She chose to remain in her cat form, as she had no desire to deal with anyone outside of Retsu. On the third day after having arrived in Seoul society, Yoruichi was walking back to Ichigo's room from breakfast in the barracks when she felt a large spike in reiatsu. She was about to walk into the room when she heard Ichigo start to speak. "Where am I? Where is Yoruichi? Kami, is she okay? Yoruichi." She rushed into the room to see his terrified expression freeze before melting into a look of utmost relief. "Yoruichi," he whispered, "where are we? I remember us being attacked by hollows." She moved to his side, sitting down on the side of the bed. "Shh, calm down Ichigo, I'm here, I'm okay, you're okay." She noticed him visibly calm as she sat next to him. "This is going to be hard. He's a Shinigami now, I'm going to have to think about all of this." "What do you remember?" she asked, trying to get her mind off of the possibilities. "Damn it, I am just like Orihime. I remember getting hit from behind. Seeing you leave your Gigai well, seeing it go limp. I saw distortions, the air was weird, and I remember something aiming for you what I thought was you. I couldn't let, not you, and then I moved, getting in the way at the right time." Yoruichi flinched at the memory. "I woke up in my inner world. My hollow was waiting for me. I have to get that bastard a name. Well, he and I had words, a few words." Ichigo lowered his voice, knowing that the purple-haired goddess in front of him was the only one he could share everything that happened except his threats. He and his hollow were still not done with that conversation. "Not to get too involved, trust me it's confusing, but during our fight Zangetsu showed up. My powers are coming back. Yoruichi, I'm back," he finished in a whisper. The absolute joy in his eyes took her breath away. He never broke his glance from her eyes, staring into the golden depths. "I am back," kept repeating over and over again in his mind. Yoruichi was speechless. After hearing his story and seeing him staring so deep into her eyes as he made his announcement, her stomach clenched in a delicious and rather unnerving way. What the hell is this about? Sure, he's a damn good-looking guy, but Cammy, the way he keeps looking at me and touching me, he better rein it in or I'll end up jumping him and, damn it, he is going to be the death of me. Yoruichi was having a difficult time rationalizing her thoughts. She acknowledged a physical attraction for Ichigo, but she was having a very hard time ignoring the growing fascination with the younger Shinigami. There it is, she thought. The moment that Ichigo had confirmed his powers were returning, fascination reared its head in the midst of overwhelming possibility. Okay, this has to go on hold for now. There are bigger fish to fry. Ichigo, the key now is rest. As soon as you're mobile, you need to talk to Zangetsu. When you've done that, you've got a date with the Saotaicho, she finished with a raised brow. Oh really? Now that my powers are back I exist again? He asked, not bothering to keep the bitterness out of his voice. Don't be too quick to your conclusions, she advised. Saotaicho Yamamoto can be quite reasonable, and he usually has a sound reason for what he does. Just keep an open mind. Can't be helped, I guess. Yoruichi? He asked. Yes, my human body. He trailed off, unable to say the words. Orihime was working on it when we left, however you'll need to stay here in Soul Society until we get your crazy Reiatsu under control. Story of my life, nay. He smirked. It was so easy to be around Yoruichi when she wasn't trying to give him a heart attack with her surprises. Still, while he had his powers back, he was by no means ready to see her go. So, I know you have responsibilities with your clan and all, but, he trailed off, trying not to blush and failing. But what, Ichigo? Sure she loved his blush, but why it was appearing now, she had no clue. He looked into the eyes that never ceased to stun him. Will I still get to see you? I know that you'll be busy, but I would really like to be able to see you if possible. Even with what's happened. Actually, including all that has happened, the past few days have been the most important of my life. I'm not quite ready to lose my mentor again, he said with a small smile, but Yoruichi could see the pleading in his eyes. Her heart melted at the sight. How can he say things like that, yet be as dense as a rock? Yar, so much to consider, however this is an easy answer. Well, my young berry-headed apprentice, she smirked at his instant scowl, I am actually going to be your caretaker while you're healing, then when you're ready, I get to whip you back into shape, she finished with a low purr. Pushing through his blush, he managed to say, then I am grateful to be once again mentored by the master. However, I think you may be surprised how quickly I catch on this time around. I'll make Bankai in 3 days look like an eternity, and you may not care for tags so much anymore, he finished with an arrogant grin. Oh Berry-chan, you may be good, but you're in over your head when it comes to the world of teasing. Let the master, as you say, show you how it's done. She donned a look as if he had said something scandalous. Be careful of the build-up, Berry-chan. I know you like to move fast, but we've only had one date, she said with sickeningly sweet fake innocence. Bam, as if on cue, Ichigo blushed deep crimson, muttering about perverted cat women. Ha, that blush never gets old. Just rest for now, your focus needs to be on communicating with Zangetsu. I'm assuming that you are aware of Jinzen and how to enter it. Ichigo nodded. Good, then that is the next step. I wonder how soon I can meet with him. I have so many questions, Ichigo said as he spotted the massive blade in its wrappings against the wall. He really wanted to speak to Zangetsu again. Their reunion was far too short and he needed answers. That would depend entirely on you, Kurosaki-san, a kind voice answered from the doorway. Ichigo turned to see Captain Unohana standing in the entrance to his small room with a kind smile. Your Reiatsu has been stable for a few days now, so as soon as you feel ready, I see no reason for you not to communicate with your Zanpakuto. However, to be on the safe side, I would recommend doing so in a secluded area. I believe that my barrier held your earlier Reiatsu burst, however, reunion with your Zanpakuto could provide much more powerful events. If discretion is key at this moment, we wouldn't want buildings leveled by your Reiatsu, would we? She finished with that same smile that sent a shiver up his spine. How does she do that? He shivered. I think I know just the place, Yoruichi said. Since you're going to make your attaining of Bankai seem like an eternity, we can visit your old training grounds. She finished with a seductive smirk, purring to Ichigo. Ichigo gulped. He remembered those grounds. Yes, the training was tough, but he knew what she was referring to, the hot springs. Geez, I asked to see Yoruichi more, but I think her definition is a little different than mine. Perverted little Neko, Ichigo muttered, making her chuckle. Retsu Unohana was a person who personified the term, calm, cool, and collected. Yet, as she watched the bantering in front of her, mixed with innocent blushes, she wanted to shout at them, just kiss already. The chemistry between the two was undeniable, however, she knew that at least one half of the pair would have trouble acknowledging it. Ichigo seemed to be the type to never consider the idea that someone could have feelings for him. He wasn't selfish, just clueless. She has her work cut out for her. She also wondered if Yoruichi was fully aware. Retsu knew that she must have already admitted an attraction, however, the chemistry that was obvious to all but them was definitely far deeper than physical attraction. She knew Yoruichi's past though. Maybe he's not the only one who can't admit it. Later that day, Ichigo decided that it was time to speak with Zangetsu, and so he and Yoruichi headed below Sokyoku Hill to the secret training area. As he settled into a meditative position, he told her, "I don't know how long this will be. You don't have to stay if you don't want to. She's already done so much for me, I don't want her to feel like I am a burden." She smirked. Now what kind of sensei would I be if I left my star pupil all alone in this big, bad world? Besides, I am very curious to know how this works out. Anyways, time in your inner world is much different than time out here. I don't think I'll be waiting that long. Just be careful, just because you want to give your hollow a name doesn't mean he won't try to take over again. She trailed off, willing him to be careful. Ichigo simply nodded. Okay, let's do this. As he closed his eyes, he felt an immediate pulling in his mind. After a moment, he opened his eyes to the familiar landscape that he thought was lost. He was greeted by two voices this time. "Yo Kingi, welcome back, Ichigo." Ichigo was subconsciously pleased. No nightmares. However, his dreams were weird. At first, he was trying to keep her from leaving. However, he soon found himself standing in a room of snobby-looking men with peacock feathers all coming for Yoruichi, who was suddenly at his side. Her heavenly scent overwhelmed him, making him turn to the peacock suitors and snarl, "She's mine," his voice reminiscent of when he was wearing his hollow mask. As they backed off, he turned to Yoruichi, holding her to him, reveling in her soft skin and how warm it was. Suddenly, he felt his shoulder shake. What? No, she's mine. He began to hold on tighter as consciousness began to invade his dream. His eyes snapping open, momentarily rejoicing in meeting a pair of wide, golden eyes with a hungry look in them. Then his mind cleared. Warm skin, heady scent, golden eyes, he looked down, shit. He knew he was in trouble. As Ichigo jumped to his feet, he began blushing like mad and apologizing profusely. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean, well I didn't know, don't be mad," and then he paused. "Wait, what are you doing on the floor? What the hell?" Yoruichi's eyebrow cocked up. "Buckle up, berry boy, this next blush will be one for the record books." "Well, good morning to you too, Romeo. Or should I say, good morning to both of you," she purred while flicking her eyes down to his waist. "Son of a bitch," Ichigo yelled internally, clasping his hands over his obviously awakened lower self. His face turned crimson. Shit, I didn't mean, goddammit I'm not a pervert," he yelled, turning and muttering, "I'm going to take a shower." Yoruichi couldn't help but call out in between her hysterical laughter, "At least I won't have to worry about you using all the hot water, nay." This was met by a slamming door. "Anything to make him blush, Isshin called from the doorway. Seeing his son do something besides mope, scowl and work out till he dropped was a welcome sight. "It's like shooting fish in a barrel," she snorted. "He certainly seemed to sleep better. Maybe we'll just have to keep you around," Isshin said airily, a little too similarly to Kazuki's mischief voice. Reality came crashing back down on Yoruichi. "What the hell am I doing? If I get too close, then have to leave he's going to be devastated again." "Isshin, I'm so sorry," she started, tears forming in her eyes. "Why am I crying so much? Kami, I'm turning into Orihime. I didn't think about." Later, she finished, looking up at Isshin. Isshin blinked. Poor girl, she has it just as bad as he does. Gods, they're thick, probably just denying it because of the circumstances. He thought sadly. I thought I told you. Don't apologize. I don't know if you realize it, but in less than a day you have done more for my son than I could ever imagine. He hasn't blushed since he lost his powers. This was big actually. Isshin usually made it a point to try and embarrass his son with demands for grandchildren. The boy was wound too tight, so Isshin did what he could to lighten him up, but that was no match for the goddess of Ichigo's dreams. Thanks, Isshin. It's just so easy to actually be myself around him. Noble life seems to drain people. But you would know all about that, nay, she smirked. Hey now, let's not bring any nonsense up. Nobody needs to know about that. Anyways, I think I heard the shower turn off. You two have fun today. I'll be around at the clinic if you need me, he said as he went down the stairs. Moments later, Ichigo came into the room wrapped in his towel, still sporting a blush. I forgot to grab some clothes, he grumbled. Yoruichi whistled, making him scowl. I'm going for a run. You can come if you want to. Sounds like fun, she said, as long as you don't mind having to watch my back the whole time as you play catch-up. Of course, after this morning, I don't think you'll mind watching my back at all, she finished with a seductive purr. His blush deepened. Yeah, I know that your favorite game is Torture the Virgin, but when it comes to running here in the living world, you will definitely be trying to catch me. He knew the way to get her off of her teasing was to question her speed. He smirked as her eyes narrowed dangerously. Virgin. Well, I can't say I'm too surprised. He's such a prude that I'm probably the only woman he's ever seen naked. Actually, I really like that idea. Oh, you're so on, Berry boy. If you can actually get dressed instead of trying to flaunt your pretty muscles at me, we can go. She laughed as he growled, grabbing his clothes and stalking off back to the bathroom. They started off with a light jog, and neither could help but to steal glances at each other. Ichigo kept finding his attention being dragged to the purple-haired woman on his right. She was wearing tight black workout pants with an even tighter white tank top. He constantly flushed as she would jog a few steps ahead of him, turning to catch him checking her out. Yoruichi couldn't get too far ahead though, as she kept peeking over at Ichigo, who was wearing silver gym shorts with a solid black t-shirt that clung to each and every muscle he had. Sure, he was a human and nothing could ever develop between them, but that didn't mean that she couldn't look. Still, this morning was, she purred to herself. She had never expected it, but the warmth she had felt being wrapped in his arms, she felt her stomach clench at the thought. Berry boy grew up to be a hottie, she smirked to herself. She still had no immediate plans to leave, so she figured some more teasing should be in order to even the playing field, though she knew he was stealing glances. She sighed. Even if he did have his powers, it would never be more than glances. He was a dense prude who had no clue about women. Oh well, she thought, he'll wake up and some human girl will grab his attention one day. Again, for some reason, this bothered her. Pushing those thoughts aside, she said, okay, Berry boy, let's say we see some speed. Ichigo smirked and started his faster pace, leaving her behind when he called out to her, sure thing, see you whenever you think you can catch up. I'll be at the riverbank catching a nap, so wake me up when you get there. He knew that would piss her off. Cheater, I'm going to bury you, Yoruichi yelled as she started to give chase. Damn, he is actually pretty fast. Stupid Gigai, she thought as she turned on the speed. She couldn't let him win this one or she would never live it down. As the river came into view in the distance, she began to really run, pushing herself to her Gigai's limit. Ichigo had a fast pace, but couldn't seem to reach the speeds he did when he had been running from his thoughts. Yoruichi's very presence made it hard to recall those feelings. I must be pretty far ahead by now, he thought to himself, chancing a glance over his shoulder. Oh shit, how the hell? His thoughts trailed off as Yoruichi was right on his heels, about to pass him. She smirked, taking a nap, my ass. However, she was starting to get winded as Gigais were no match for her spirit form. Time to wrap this up. They were at the beginning of the path for the river, and she made her move, tearing out in front of him. You gotta be kidding me, Ichigo muttered as Yoruichi left him behind. He couldn't help but peer down as she passed him, watching her rear move under the tight black pants. Focus, pervert, he shouted to himself, but it was too late. As Yoruichi reached the bank, she turned around grinning as she gasped for breath. Still gasp gasp have a way gasp gasp to go berry. As she said this, she fell back onto the ground, panting and grinning. Ichigo scowled at his nickname, but quickly grinned, panting himself. Looks like the goddess gets to keep her title, for now. Even though he ran twice this length every day, he was still really winded. He looked down, seeing her smile quickly fade to a look of horror. "What's roof?" he cried, feeling the rest of his wind leave him as a vicious impact to his back launched him over Yoruichi and into the dirt a few feet away. "Ichigo!" Yoruichi screamed as she saw him slam into the dirt. She watched as he got to his knees, coughing up blood. She turned to see the newly appeared hollow turn its attention to her. That hollow appeared out of nowhere. This was bad. She had to get into her spirit form, now. Yoruichi screamed to Ichigo as she grabbed her soul candy. "Get out of here. It's a hollow. I'll meet you back at your house, now go." As her hand holding the candy neared her mouth, she turned to see the hollow raise a clawed foot over her. Ichigo's senses were scattered. One minute he was talking to Yoruichi, the next he is flying through the air. As he got to his knees, he coughed up a large amount of blood. Not good, he thought, looking around for Yoruichi. As he located her, he saw her hand move to her mouth. Soul candy. His body and thoughts were frozen as he saw Yoruichi's gigai go limp before it was slammed into the ground by an invisible force. "Yoruichi!" he yelled. "Wait, not invisible." He squinted as he saw a hazy distortion in the air above her gigai. It was faint, but it was there. As he stood, he noticed a smaller distortion, now beside the lifeless shell. Is that her? He didn't hesitate, getting to his feet a little shakily, but his body started to move towards the distortions. I need to move her gigai, before seeing another huge distortion appear behind the smaller one. As the first was still in front of what he assumed was Yoruichi, he started to panic. No, when he saw the one behind her move, his body took over his mind, pure instinct. Ichigo's body flew the rest of the distance between himself and the distortions. His eyes zeroed in on what seemed to be an extension of the second large distortion heading for the small one in the middle. Yoruichi or not, he would not chance her being harmed. His entire being screamed against the idea. He appeared between the smaller distortion and the extension, hurtling towards it just in time to feel something large pierce through his back. His mind became painfully clear as he noticed a large amount of blood fly from his chest. He noticed the other large distortion clear, as if it were dissolving. As he stood, invisible appendage still sticking out from his chest, he noticed the smaller distortion become more clearly defined, right in front of him. She was becoming clearer and clearer, and he could see that she was trying to hold him as her golden eyes were wide with terror. He thought he heard his name, but it was so muffled that he may have been hallucinating from the blood loss. "I can see her. Ichi," he gasped, blood now gushing from his mouth and chest. He felt what he assumed was a hollow's claw began to exit his body, and he begged her, "Run, please. Don't die," just as his heart stopped beating. Yoruichi separated from her body just in time to see her gigai crushed beneath the clawed foot of the hollow. Where the hell did it come from? Soon, her senses were alerted to the presence of another hollow. No, she turned to see Ichigo getting to his feet. Good, he can get out of here, she thought, not sure how she was going to do the same as the hollows that had appeared were very close to her and looked to be quite strong. As she dashed forward to punch the first, she felt the second one behind her. Damn it, this is going to hurt, she thought, preparing for the hit. She felt nothing, though as she broke the first hollow's mask and forced it to disintegrate, she heard the horrible, terrifying sound of ripping flesh. No, Kami, please, no, don't do this to me. As she turned, her worst nightmares were confirmed. Ichigo was right in front of her, a massive claw protruding from his chest, covered in his blood. Yoruichi's heart skipped a beat as her hands flew to her mouth and tears flooded her eyes. Ichi, she heard him gasp, her eyes widening as blood flowed from his mouth and chest. She reached out to grab him as the hollow's claw began to pull out of his body. She heard him speak again, quieter this time as she saw the life began to drain from his eyes. Run, please, don't die. Yoruichi screamed so loudly that her voice broke as she saw his eyes glaze over, the last of his life leaving him. No, Ichigo. She continued to scream as his body fell through her spirit form arms and his blood began to stain the ground in front of her. Ichigo was falling. He assumed he was, at least, because he felt wind whipping around him and he had no sense of direction. He closed his eyes to try and get his bearings, but all too soon he felt himself slam into something. Something hard. He felt glass shatter beneath him as he opened his eyes. He was greeted by a familiar sight of sideways skyscrapers as he got to his feet. What the hell? He thought. His thoughts were interrupted by a voice he thought he'd never hear again. Yo, King. Been a while, nay. Ichigo stood up and turned just in time to see a solid white version of his fist come slamming into his face. Yoruichi couldn't stop screaming. Ichigo was lying lifeless on the ground. Ichigo is dead. No, 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 this can't be happening. Her thoughts were interrupted by a large shockwave of Reiatsu. Familiar Reiatsu. Her eyes widened as she saw a lifeless version of Ichigo rise from the broken corpse on the ground. This version looked like him, but as she watched, a white shell began to cover it from head to toe. His orange hair exploded in length, falling down his back while a long white tail formed behind him. His hands and feet became razor-sharp claws and red stripes began to trail along his limbs and face, spikes sprouted from his shoulders, and at the center of his chest was a hole. A clear, clean hole that was completely through from front to back. As his transformation completed, the mouth of his terrifying mask opened, white steam hissing out. Ichigo flew backwards from the impact of the punch. Now you gotta admit, Kingy, you had that coming. Ichigo wiped the blood that oozed out from his cut lip. I guess so. But what is going on? I thought my powers were gone for good. Not that he wasn't thrilled to see even the pale, asshole version of himself, but he was thoroughly confused. The last thing he remembered was running towards Yoruichi. He shouted her name, knowing he had bought her some time, but did she get away? Calm your ass down. She's fine. For now, a devilish grin could be heard in his voice. He stood there in what Ichigo remembered as his resurrection form. But once I'm done with all the weak-ass hollows that showed up, I might just have some fun with little Miss Kitty, he finished, laughing maniacally. I'll kill you before I let you touch her, Ichigo bellowed. He was about to charge his photo negative, but he froze. What do you mean, done with? Did you take over my body? I told you to calm down, idiot. Your body is useless. You played the sacrifice card one too many times, now you're fresh out of miracles. I was released and now I'm in charge of our spiritual form, and I'm kicking ass. You obviously don't value your life, your power, or even your soul, so I am hereby relieving you of it. The hollow version tried to sound really proper at the end of this, which cracked him up, making him roll with his insane laughter again. At this, Ichigo froze. Don't value my soul. What are you talking about? Just because I sacrificed myself for others doesn't mean I see my soul as worthless. Don't spout your bullshit to me. The hollow version roared, instantly infuriated. What gives you the right to lay me on some fucking sacrificial altar? Question mark. I save your ass time and time again, protecting you, reviving you, protecting your precious fucking friends, and how many times did you listen to me? Exclamation mark. None. I hate you, Ichigo. You use me like a damn horse, leeching my powers like I owed them to you, then offered me up as a sacrifice for your so-called friends that dropped you as soon as you'd given everything. Now you throw away what little life you had left for that bitch who would have left you as soon as she'd gotten bored. No, if you hate your life that much, then it's time for you to be the horse. As he finished, he launched himself at Ichigo again, aiming another vicious punch at his face. This time Ichigo dodged, countering and throwing a punch at his hollow version. He felt like he hit solid rock. Ha 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 ha, you think you can hurt me? You're nothing since you gave me up. You lock me away in the depths of your soul and expect to just come back and take control with no conviction. No determination. Ha, you don't even use your own power. Sure, Kitty Cat is hot, but is all you're doing just fighting for some tail? Don't worry, as soon as I'm done with you in here and the hollows out there, I'll nail her once before shredding her to bits. Ichigo felt a fury he had never felt before. It seeped out of him from his head to his toes. He felt a furious, raging power surge throughout his limbs and a red haze cloud his vision. You will never touch her. He moved, flashing forward and striking his hollow version in the face, shattering part of his mask. As a few pieces fell, he saw a blue eye glaring out at him, with white hair poking out of some other cracks. Ichigo punched again, breaking off the hollow's right horn and more of the mask, revealing a face. Tensa Zangetsu. So you finally found some resolve, Ichigo. Ichigo recalled the voice. It was the same voice that had told him farewell more than 17 months ago. A voice he had prayed to hear again one day. Zangetsu. Ichigo cried, his voice still layered with his enormous surge in power. What does this mean? Do I have my powers back? Are you really back? Ichigo was shouting at this point. He had missed this part of his soul terribly. The half-Tensa Zangetsu hollow form stared at Ichigo for a moment, moved by his wielder's obvious joy at seeing him. It all depends on you, Ichigo. If you want me, you must drag me out of your soul and reclaim me. Haha, that's funny. I told you, I run the show now. You want your precious power back? Come and get it. I'll crush you and claim your so AAACCCCKKK. The hollow side of the Zangetsu standing before him couldn't finish as Ichigo flashed forward and plunged his hand into the middle of the form's chest. Feeling the familiar hilt of his blade, Ichigo gripped it and ripped it out of the chest before him, watching his sword seemingly materialize as he drew it out. As the hollow part screamed in agony, the form began to separate, with both Tensa Zangetsu and the hollow version of Ichigo appearing separately before beginning to dissolve. Zangetsu. Wait, what does this mean? Where are you going? We must depart for now. We will talk again, soon. I promise, Ichigo. Thank you for reclaiming me, it has been far too long, he said as he disappeared into the air of Ichigo's inner world. As both fully disappeared, Ichigo felt himself being pulled away. Ichigo came to as he saw white claws connected to his body slice through a hollow's mask. As he turned, he felt the white shell surrounding his body crumbling. He felt the presence of several spiritual figures, but couldn't focus on them. He needed to see her. He had to know she was okay. His existence seemed to hang on this one question. When he fully turned, he saw her. Her tear-filled, golden eyes were wide, seemingly shocked at what she was seeing. As he saw that she was unharmed, yet kneeling on the ground for some reason, he started to smile. Yoruichi, he whispered. He then looked down at his broken human body on the bloody ground. It was covered by a familiar orange shell. His head quickly snapped to his hand to see his own skin, his own hand clutching an oh-so-familiar blade. I'm back, he said as a question, looking up at her once more before losing consciousness. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.